Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared. We're here live on YouTube and Facebook, and we're excited to bring to you, we're going to do a little bit of what-if scenarios. We're going to talk about what happens when the lights go out, and maybe some other things. Who knows? But we're definitely going to run some scenario what-ifs. What would you do if kind of stuff. Before we jump into the podcast today, oh, by the way, Scott, Shane, and Paris, or all three of us are here tonight. We're excited to be live with you all, and we're all here tonight, or this morning, or whenever you're listening, or, because we're live, I say evening. So as a reminder, preppertalkradio.com supports the show. If you go there, and I'm going to share my screen really quickly so that you can see, but if you go to preppertalkradio.com, if you look across the top here, you'll see where it says resources, recommendations, first aid, and good life. If you click on first aid, it'll take you here to this this website here where you can have Mountain Man Medical. We've worked out a deal with them. There's certain kits that they have, certain trauma kits that you can get up to 10% off, and actually 10% off if you use the go to that link and you go to that site. You can click your kits. That site is actually specific. I don't think there's a code to enter. You just use that site and that link, and it will give you that 10% off as a listener of Prepper Talk Radio. The next one we want to share with you is right now there's a huge movement to make America healthy again. And in an effort to do that, we have procured an affiliate link with a company that wants to help people get healthy, stay healthy, and do it at an affordable price. And that is our across the top Good Life. If you go to preppertalkradio.com, across the top, you'll see Good Life. It'll take you to this landing page, and you'll be able to learn more about the products and services there. And if you're like most Americans today and you'd like to learn how to make a little extra money, there is an affiliate program to share those products and services as well that we would love to help you with. We're working as a master affiliate. So anybody who comes in as an affiliate, we can help train and help you guide and direct you if you want to do that. So without further ado, let's jump into when the lights go out.
Ooh, so scary.
Inspired by true events.
Right. Well, it was funny because my daughter the other day, she's like, Dad, because she has a light on in her room all the time. I'm like, you sleep better if you have the lights off, right? And if it's the darker it is, the better you sleep. She's like, but Dad, I'm scared. I'm scared of the dark. And I'm like, that I told her, I said, look, the dark is more scared of me than you should be of it. And so if it does anything to you, you come tell me and I'll take care of it for you. So little girls are awesome.
You remember the movie Major Pain?
I do. Well, I do know the movie, but I don't know if I remember any of the things about it.
So the guy goes in, I think it's Major Pain. I'm pretty sure it's Major Pain, but one of the Wayans brothers, he walks in, he's a military guy. He walks in, little boy is like, it's happening in my closet. And he walks in, he's like, okay. And he goes over, pow, 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 unloads on it. And he goes, if it's still alive, it's only angry at me now, and walks off. And I'm like, dude, that's how you treat the dark, man. Like,
I like that.
It's okay, right? I have a daughter that's afraid of the dark too. She's like, nah, my son. He's like, dude, turn all the lights off. I'm good. But she's always got to have a light. So yeah, this is all. I love this topic because, I'm a huge enthusiast in all things preparedness, especially books. Like when the power goes out, like what do you do? What do you deal with? Like what's the reality of it? I remember as a kid, it was disruptive when the power would go out because it'd be out for like a day and come back on, or you'd have the short little boop, hey, somebody cut a line, it'll be back up in a couple hours, or just an overload on the system, right? But now our entire world is digital. Our entire surrounding is dependent on it.
Yeah.
Right now we used to carry cash, we used to carry assets. Now we're like, if I don't have this piece of plastic, I can't go get what I need to get because we've been conditioned by the new world normal, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons we're talking about this again is it's persisting in the news, online. There was of course the big outage in Spain and Portugal, and then was it last week? Time flies so quickly. I can't even remember. They had a big communications outage, and like WebDad here said, I'm not so worried. Oh, what happened? Yeah, I'm not so worried about the lights going out. I'm worried about the internet going out. I mean, obviously that's part of it, right? And I'm not as worried about that. That means I don't have to work, right? If the internet. But obviously much bigger well, I guess you could say bigger ramifications with just the power going out. And so I think it's a good idea to do a thought exercise and do some planning, PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency planning for these type of events. Where do you find yourself throughout the day, and what are your plans?
Well, I mean, I probably should have mentioned this on the last episode, but there's a huge push right now to go more electric and have everything more digital, which is definitely electricity. I heard that the government is now going to stop the printing of pennies.
Yeah.
And so if you don't print a penny, like if you go to the store and you buy something and you pay cash and you don't have change, you're not going to get penny. Like it's nickels or higher.
Yeah.
So
what did that just do? Magic inflation.
Right. It totally pushed everything up another 3 or 4 cents. But that means that they're really hoping, and their plans are to keep everything electronic. And the more electronic they do, like literally one of the big things that happened years ago in Texas when the power went out, my brother who lives in Texas, he's like, dude, with Snowmageddon, he went to the store and nobody had cash. Nobody could buy stuff. Everything that the store was selling was all on the swipe the card or cash registered. I mean, the people couldn't even do math really to figure out how much you owed. And so it was a big mess. And so we're just so dependent on the grid with everything, not just for having the lights on, but being able to purchase and buy stuff. I mean, how many of you, if the internet went down, well, actually, if the internet went down, I'd save a lot of money because my wife couldn't buy Amazon stuff. But anyways,
amen to that.
right. Sorry, ladies. The idea, I mean, I haven't bought, I love Amazon too every once in a while, but I haven't bought anything recently. But that's just the reality of when the grid goes down. That's what we're looking at and talking about.
Well, I think a big part of that, Paris, is you're absolutely right. The powers that be, the government, are trying to do away with gas powered this and that and and electrify everything. We know that can't happen. And we look at California, like you mentioned in our last show, Paris, is they want all the cars to be electric by 2040, I forget. It's just not going to happen. It can't happen. Maybe even sooner than that. But what does that give the government? More control, because everything's smart, everything's connected to the internet. And if we are autonomous and have a gas vehicle that doesn't have a connection to the internet or a way to be hacked, then we have more freedom. And I think that's part of the whole thing is control, and 100%. Electricity, our being bound to the electrical grid gives them an extreme amount of control.
Well, what's funny to me is, how old is the internet? Right, the internet.
92, 93?
1992, 1993, we started rolling out the internet. Started on phone lines, then it started moving from phone lines.
And wasn't it Al Gore? Wasn't it Al Gore that did it?
Oh, yeah. That's right. He invented the internet. That's right.
Thank you, Al Gore, for the internet. But it started on phone lines, and now it's upgraded. Some still on phone lines, but now it's on its own system. What's funny is that entire system is separate of our electrical grid, but yet fully relies on an electrical grid that still, in most cases, has not been updated in more than 50 years prior to 1992. There have been no significant upgrades to the electrical grid. So yeah, everything that we use in this new modern era of the smart world is all reliant on that one system that can easily be gone in an instant. And what I'm more worried about, I'm not worried about food spoiling in the freezer so much as I'm worried about, and I'm not worried about my card not being accepted somewhere or my Amazon account shutting down. Thank the Lord if that happens, right? I'm worried about my stupid neighbor who thinks that he's entitled, right? Or the bad guy. Because here's what happens. When I lived in Florida, I realized very quickly, I lived in a place called Ybor City for a little while. I learned very quickly that bad guys don't do bad stuff during the daylight, and especially in the morning. And it's because they're usually out doing bad stuff all night when the lights are out. So they're going to have free reign, and if left unchecked. I think that's the bigger issue that a lot of people aren't thinking about. At least not enough. We're all going to be in the same boat as far as screwed. We don't have internet. We don't have electricity. We don't have lights on. We don't have medical devices being powered up anymore, right? The bigger issue is are we in a position where we know how to defend ourselves? Are we in a position where we are in a safe location? Can we have a defensible home? Can we have a neighborhood watch that's active on this, right? Because the honest truth is you can't stay awake 24/7 and have good critical thinking skills. So you
Yeah, what's
need
interesting is I was on a podcast as a guest the other day, and I was talking to somebody about there are people waiting. There are people that are only obedient in society because there are people that can put them in check.
Mm-hmm.
And law enforcement, sheriff's departments, etc. The minute that goes out the window, they're like their mental illness or whatever it is that's inside their psychopathology. They're just waiting for society to collapse and crumble so that they can go and just wreak their havoc. And don't think that they're not willing to do whatever it takes. I mean, there's some people, even like we know that about criminals. There are some people that even with the societal restraints that we have, they still go crazy. But there's people that have enough self-control that they're working within that still. When that goes away, we're going to see I think, anyways, my opinion, I think we're going to see a doubling or tripling of that kind of activity.
This was interesting. Did you guys see this comment from Web Dad? It's scary how your life can be profiled by someone plotting your home electrical usage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that data is available anywhere. I in doing solar sales, I could call with them on the phone and get all their usage data, right? What's funny is with the internet tech that's available now, it's easy to spoof somebody else and still get all that data. You can just pretend to be them and get the data, right? But then there's also all these smart home devices, and most people have easy to guess passwords. Stop using the word password as your password, guys, right? And pass 1234 exclamation point or whatever it is, like that. Those aren't safe. For a more in-depth way to do this, you need to check out our prior episode where we talked about personal cybersecurity issues and what you can do with like securing passwords better. But guys, like the smart devices we have are spying on us and using data like crazy. We talked about this a while ago, but there's I think it was an LG appliance that was using 3.6 gigs a day uploading and downloading
the washing machine.
Yeah, washing machine. And I'm just like, guys, don't get smart stuff. It seems like a good idea, but it's giving all your data away.
Not only that, but they can literally hack into your Wi-Fi, and with the bouncing of waves and vibrations, they can tell where you are in the house.
Mm-hmm. Well, they can get a lot more data just off those machines. From what I've seen, they can actually use some of these Chinese vacuums, these Chinese equipment that have a Bluetooth connection. They can not only allows you to connect and to the vacuum. Why would you want a Bluetooth vacuum anyway? Mm-hmm. But it can work in reverse as well. They can use that to spy on your phone when you're connected to your phone. That's how they can tap into your network.
And with your security electronic systems in your home, like how secure are those? Because they're only connecting through your Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
right.
Like Mike says, try to buy something non-smart TV. You can't even get that anymore.
Yard sales, get the oldest one you can find, even if the electric bill is way high. Like it's bad. Or I don't know. My goal is to not have a TV in the next place I live, and just have a nice big screen and a projector
monitor.
But the only thing I can send into it is the data from whatever device I'm pushing, and that it's completely off grid otherwise. That's my goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool to have.
So, I guess going down this the rabbit hole scenario of what I would do, what we would do in an outage. So say let's take similar scenario that happened in Spain. People were out, they're heading to work. I think it started around 9 a.m. or something like that, or maybe a little earlier in the morning. People were in the middle of their commute, just getting to work, and then all of a sudden, everything is down. Everything, lights, subway, train, electric train, everything. And from what I read, there were people who they were just frozen. They didn't know what to do. Well, I guess I walk home. They don't have cash. They don't have, their cards don't work, right? They can't get any cash. They don't have any food or water on them. And kind of stuck. I mean, it only ended up lasting I think for most people around 8 hours, 7-8 hours, but for some people 24 hours or somewhere around there, if I'm correct. So where do you find yourselves? Maybe you guys chime in here. Where do you find yourselves around 9 a.m. in the morning, and how would that affect you if the power is just out? Are you driving to work? You're on the freeway.
Well,
you
we're
won't
all
see that until you try and get off at the exit, right? You got the stoplights not working.
That's not a fair question for us. That's a question for our audience, right?
Yeah.
Where are you guys?
Yeah.
Like Shane works from home, about 50-60% of the time. The other time you're out in the field.
Yeah, I'm out driving. Yep.
Paris works at home like 90% of the time, and 10% he's out in the field. I'm home like 115% of the time. I'm fortunate enough that I work remote part-time. I do my side hustle, but then the rest of my time, I'm the homeschooling dad. I'm a stay-at-home dad. My wife works a 9 to 5. That I will graduate her out of that by the end of the year. She'll be retired. But like, yeah, if things go sideways and the grid goes down, like we have a specific plan. She doesn't go very far. She doesn't like to drive, but thankfully her work is less than 12 minutes away. When the grid's on, it's like 7 minutes. But if the grid goes down, we have multiple map ways to get home, and she knows them all by heart. She knows what to do, how to get there. We have train tracks in between us. If the grid goes down, guess what? Trains could be stopping and blocking all your roads, right? Boating lanes will slow down and stop. Ports will stop. Your semis, they're going to stop at a rest stop and be like, okay, now what? Right? People are going to stop. They freeze. It's just like the Snowmageddon. People stopped. And in Spain, what happened? The subways that shut down, people were sitting in subway cars because they didn't know what to do. They froze. And they just sat there waiting for someone to come rescue them. I would have just walked off. I'd have just opened the emergency doors, climbed out, and a lot of people did, climbed out and walked home. But the question is what do you have on you that's going to help you get through that situation, right? You've got to have, number one, a plan for mobility, how to get to a safe space, a plan so that everyone can communicate, know what to do, right? And a communications backup, right?
Yeah.
The cell phones are not going to work. If the grid goes down, your cell phone towers are only going to repeat signals for so long, and then it's bye. And most of the ones I know about are only up to 48 hours. So someone can correct me in the comments, but like I haven't done research on that topic in a long time, but like most cell phone towers have a standby, a backup. Some of them I think have been a week, but a lot of them are just short amount of time and they're solar powered. So they might only work in the day in the coming days, but guys, you've got to have a backup. And if you don't know how to do smoke signals now, you're not going to automatically know how to do them then.
I think another thing too is I was talking with a neighbor the other day, and she's like, I love, going around barefoot and just being, in my flip flops. And I'm like, that's actually really cool if everything's great. But if you got to hike from North 40 to your house,
yep,
you're going to have some arch problems if you're hiking in flip flops, So another reason why I try to wear good shoes is because I want to be ready if I need to pull over on the side of a road to help somebody, if I need to, if the good news is that if the power is out, one of the things that I think that if it's not an EMP and your car still works, you should still be able to drive. The problem is you're going to have a huge traffic jam at every stoplight because every moron forgets how to go through the stoplight usually. I mean, it's like you wait. Okay, the guy to the right goes, the guy to that right goes. Like and these guys go, and then these guys go, and sometimes you'll have two people go, and you're like, no, it wasn't your turn, bro.
And then they crash, and then what?
And then you got to crash, and then you're like, dude, bro, you just ruined it for everybody. So it's important to remember. Okay, what do we do when the stoplights don't work? Okay, we come to a stop, we wait for the guy to go, and then we can go. As long as everybody's playing the game, it'll be annoying and it'll be it'll take you twice as long perhaps, but at least you'll get through safely.
Well, the problem is if they malfunction, they do the flashing light. If the power's out, they're just not on at all.
No flashing light, yeah.
And people are going to be panicking. I'm sure, and that causes accidents. It causes traffic jams. So I would be prepared to camp out in your vehicle until, for a certain amount of time. Yeah. I assume that the next big outage is going to be for multiple days, not just multiple hours. next big one we see. Of course, they blame this on what was the term, atmospheric anomaly, which the other thing that I heard is that because the entire country a few days before actually was 100% run on renewable energy, solar and wind, and those systems are just not designed. They are not capable of absorbing or transmitting a flexible amount of electricity, right? It's not always consistent. It goes, there's valleys and peaks in the energy needs, whereas a typical whether you're using it's a hydroelectric dam that has the big electric motors that can ramp up or ramp down, and the whole system, our whole traditional system, is made to absorb and provide for the needs, whereas solar and wind just cannot do that. It's not made for that. And so from what I understand, that was the main cause, is once it started to go, it went and it tripped and everything was down. But also hearing, suspicious observers, our friend over there, Ben, he said there absolutely was some kind of atmospheric astronomical anomaly, that there's potentially a weak magnetic field over that part of the world. And that's also why communications went down a week or so ago. And so a combination, and of course, there's the theories, this was hacked. This was intentional. Of course, that's where my mind goes as well. Oh, this is done on purpose, right? But I think there are certain things that are happening or going to happen that will interfere with the elite's plan. I mean, they're not going to be, it's not going to match up with God's plan. And so they are going to be thwarted in their plans, but it's going to be obviously it's going to be bad. It's going to be natural disasters. It's going to be things that will destroy their plans completely. When that's going to happen, I don't know.
So let's apply the ready radius logic to preparation for a grid down scenario. Right? First, we talk about what we have in here. What's in the think can? What's in the brain tank? If you're running on empty and you don't have a plan for this already, you're gonna freeze. You're gonna go into fight or flight mode. You're gonna not, like most people are just gonna freeze. If you don't have a plan, you're up the creek without a paddle. So you've got to start thinking of other ways to do things and have a plan in place. Number two, what's on you that you can use? Shane and I and Paris, like we're all, and most of you guys agree, travel heavy, meaning if you're in your car, you've got a trunk, fill it with as much stuff as you can use, right? Depending on where I'm going, what I'm doing, the farther I'm going away from home, the more kit I bring with me, right? I don't want to, like, if I'm just going to the grocery store, I don't add my extra long bag and kits. If we're going on a trip out of state, guess what's coming? A tiny food supply to last us the duration of the vacation, plus our get home bags for the whole family, plus our extended stay in our car kit, right? So that we have blankets and we have water, ability to gather more water, tote more water, maintain that location if we have to. And depending on where we're traveling, we have personal protection devices. So you have to think about all of those things. Depending on where you might be when that thing goes wrong, you've got to have everything ready. Like, I personally love the idea of having a foldable, collapsible bike in my car at all times. When I'm traveling alone, far away, like, that was always part of the plan. You've got that, Shane. How do you like that? Have you tested it out?
I'll pull it out every once in a while, make sure that the tires are inflated, everything's working fine. But I haven't actually tested it. I'm too busy to stop. Oh, hey, I'm gonna see how far I can ride this thing. But
you did do that road march one time to see how you do hiking home.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I decided to put a folding bike in the truck, is because I tried to do 50 miles walking. I couldn't do it. My soles of my feet froze up. I made it 28 miles and had to call for a ride at 2 a.m. in the morning. But I just couldn't do it. I just wasn't, I'm too old, I guess you could say. Well, not in condition. I don't walk that far very often. But that's one of the things.
Dawkins hear you say that.
Well, yeah. Well, he'd rip me a new one. You can't walk 50 miles. I can run 250 miles.
with broken feet.
Exactly. Yeah.
He'd use colorful language to call me a sissy baby.
Now, could I have, in an emergency, could I have pushed through and kept going? Yeah, probably, but it was be very painful.
Which then goes to okay, do I have electrolytes? Do I have nutritional supplements?
Yeah.
Do I have fuel to keep my body going? And do I have moleskin? Right? There are other products you can use to help fix your feet as you're going. Dude, I've got my first aid kits in my car are my best first aid kits. And I go through those every spring and every fall because I want to make sure nothing's gone bad, expired. That's my most at-risk situation if I'm away from home. I have more robust everything else at home, but like very specifically highly tuned kits for the car.
So another thing too, a lot of people, like one of the big things I'm thinking about right now is when the grid goes down, how are you going to cook? And especially if you live in an apartment. So, I mean, I have a fire pit in the back of my house. I have a barbecue. I have with propane. I have some ways to cook. I have a solar oven. I have some ways to cook. My stove is all electric. And even if you have a gas stove, usually those are electric ignition. So you might be able to still have some gas if you have to, but remember to keep that safe because you don't want to have that, turn that on and have it, all the fumes go into your house. So make sure you have a flame ready to go that you can light it yourself. But if you're in an apartment and you have an electric stove and a microwave and you're like, what do I do? Well, hopefully you have a balcony. Hopefully you have a common area at the bottom of the, outside the thing, and you can coordinate with some other people in the place to either get a barbecue on your balcony and use that to continue to cook. Cause you can cook a lot of things on a body. Leukotape is so
sorry,
there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of ways that you can cook and have resources to cook, even if it's a camping stove on your balcony. I mean, you can do some things if you're in an apartment.
Well, it's funny is like you can build your own, but I love Ghost Sun solars. Have you played with those at all?
Yeah,
because they work in low light and they work on reflected light too. So it's one of the most efficient solar type ovens, sun ovens. But they even have another one, I believe, that came out last year that you can actually connect it to a heat source to do everything. But it'll cook next to a fire at night. Like it's pretty awesome.
Well, like Rebecca posted here, the people in Spain and Portugal, their phone batteries died and they didn't know what to do. They weren't prepared. They had nowhere to plug in. So yeah, that's one of the items I keep in my truck all the time is a small solar panel and a battery bank as well when I go on longer trips. Charge up those small devices, have some communication. Yeah, just like that little device there too. Yeah, very cool.
You can get this bad boy over at our good friends Survival Frog.
Yep,
it's got the battery and it's got the panels.
Yeah, that'll charge it. Your phone several times and maybe keep your laptop running.
Yeah, just to keep in communication, which who knows if we'll actually have that kind of communication. And that's where, another part of the plan too is having some way to not just to communicate, but just to get some information. Mm-hmm. And if there's no grid power, nothing may be transmitting. If you have an AM FM radio, I know that's super old school, right? To have those emergency radios that have a solar panel and a crank to charge them. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, there's lots of different ones. You can get them for pretty cheap on Amazon. And it's got radio in there, and most likely they'll things will be transmitting on AM or FM frequencies when there's emergencies. Most of our governments have those provisions already set up so that you can have some information, make good choices. So, and obviously, with I've got 5 kids, and I can see, oh, Dad, what do we do? What's going on? How am I going to communicate with them, right? Well, and so far, none of them will get their ham radio licenses. So I'm going to have to do something like Meshtastic or something like that and set everybody up. And
well, the nice thing too is like we've had the E1 emergency app guy on a while ago. Mm-hmm. Like if you guys go to our website, preppertalkradio.com, like we've got links to all the different groups we work with and all the amazing stuff. But like one of those on, I think it's the recommendations page is the E1 emergency app. if you guys go check that out, like you can actually have it set up so while the internet's still working, while phone lines are still working, it can ping everybody in your network to let them know, hey, there's a problem and let's get it fixed. So nice little cool tool that's up on there.
Yeah, do you even know what an AM FM radio is nowadays? You get to break that out and
yeah, if it's not streaming,
yeah.
If it's not streaming, kids start screaming. Like they want their Wi-Fi and they want their Wi-Fi
Mm-hmm.
now.
It's pretty darn cool. I mean, you can get some of these. Like I have these GMRS radios. These actually have AM FM on it. I can actually tune it right on these. So, and I don't only take these on long trips, but maybe I should think twice. Pretty cool.
Well, also one that we haven't jumped into yet really is like, what is your home setup? So we've talked about the Radio Radius, like, and you guys can get the book. It's linked off our website. You can find it on Amazon, Radio Radius by Shane and I, volume 1, for sale right now at all locations. Right. But here's the thing, like, think about what's next in my family's plan, your home, right? And then maybe a bug out location, a rehabilitation place you can go. But like, what do I have there? What can I put there to help make it so that I'm resilient and I can cook, I can clean, I can live as much of a normal life as possible, right? Sanitation is going to be out. Like your toilet's not going to work depending on the system that you're on. Most of those are water pressure related. Most cities don't have water pressure if the power goes out. So how are you going to go to the bathroom? Where? Like, are you going to put a porta potty in the backyard? Right? Locally, we have a company called Honeypot. Am I going to call Honeypot and have them drop something? No, the internet's out. I can't call them. So I've got to find my own solution. So if I don't already have a plan, that's the number one problem I'm going to be facing against, because the bacteria that's going to spread from that is going to take out people in my group. I've also got to think about keeping everything else clean, getting clean and potable water, right? Sandy, yes, build a stinking outhouse. It's not hard to do, right? Grab a couple pool noodles, wrap around some logs, sit on that and have a hole there and dig a hole in the ground. Like, if you want to put up a little tent around it, even better, give you some privacy. But if you have to hang out and do business, do business. But you've got to think about all the different things that we're currently relying on in your home that require electricity, and what are alternatives that don't require electricity that you can do, right? How am I going to heat during the winter? Do I have a heat source that can keep us warm and not freeze to death? Right. That's where you have to have like a nice cast iron, double burner system, wood stove or recirculating air wood stove. Like those things can keep things hot forever, or just even a simple one, a wood stove of some kind. A fireplace is great, like, but it's extremely inefficient. What's that?
I have a couple of those heater buddies, or whatever they're called.
Which is great. Yeah, those
portable ones that use on propane. But it only goes so far as the propane is in stock.
Right. And when you run out of propane, what can you do? Like, so having a backup to a backup, anything that's renewable is great. That you have a local supply that you can go get more of, right? We've got a lot of dead trees where I live, so I can just go out and chop them down, but that requires a lot of energy.
Well, even with the dead trees and trees in my yard, I put rocket stove here in the chat.
There you go.
Just the trees in my backyard, they've dropped enough branches that I collect that I can power that rocket stove, for a long, long time, just off the twigs. You don't have to cut any trees down. So I think a rocket stove is a very efficient way to go for it's fun to have the, do some marshmallows around there without having to have a fire pit or anything like that, and very efficient. So, but yeah, wood stove, and then Field Tac, of course, I have this too. I have a CB radio in my rig as well. Yeah, the weather channels, they will most likely be transmitting emergency information on that, not just weather at the time of emergency, if that's all that's available. So yeah, CB, talk about old school. They still exist. You can still get them on Amazon. You can still get the high-end ones. You can still get the cheap ones. I actually put one in a little portable case. It's not mounted full-time in my rig, but I can plug it in cigarette lighter and just take it with me wherever I go.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, Scott, because right now it's, moving into summer, spring, summer. And so people are like, what do I need a heater for? Well, the power could go out when it's cold in the winter time. And so make sure that you have a plan, not just when the power goes out, but for each season, especially if you're in a place that has multiple seasons that are significant weather. So that's a really good point.
Well, and the other thing is the world doesn't care where you live, how you live, or what you're doing. When a disaster strikes, it strikes. No one has a timer on when those are going to happen. So you've got to be prepared for year round where you live. Know your location, know where your water supplies are. Like, I know where 2 stream heads are nearby where I can go get water for a refill. I know where there's a freshwater source, a spring that I can go get water. But the problem is that's going to be infested with everybody else that's looking for fresh water, right? Those areas are going to be anywhere else. And so I can store enough water locally on my property that I can stay here for about a month without having to go out. That's worst case scenario, right? I could probably fit more water, but I don't want to because then it's a bigger issue. But then you also have to think about all the filtration, all the purification techniques. What am I going to do to get and resupply that water, as well as what are my food options? That's why it's like so imperative to have a fallback place that has a surplus of goods to get you through those times. A lot of the food that we stockpile, we don't have to cook or prepare.
Another thing that's important to realize is that, you might say, well, I don't need to necessarily learn right now because I have a PDF. I have YouTube. I could go look on YouTube. Well, if the power's out, you don't have YouTube.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
YouTube University is not in session when the power is out. So if you do want to have things like that, do a few searches for some YouTube videos now, and then download those YouTube videos, and then put them in a folder for you to say, okay, now I'm ready to learn. I can go watch those YouTube videos. And hopefully, it wouldn't be years later and it's still relevant information, but you're not going to have you're not going to have access to any electronical internet chat GPT to ask any of these questions. You got to, so it's important to kind of do your homework first and be ready ahead of time. I just remember that great saying, when the time for decision has arrived, the time for preparation is past. Mm-hmm. And so that's important to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Field Tech says here, our city has water tanks and it's fed by gravity, but you've got electric pumps get the water to the tanks out of the wells, and they have backup generators. But the longer an outage lasts, the more dangerous it's going to be. And so I would always plan for the worst case right up front and just be prepared for that, right? Because if you're thinking, I'm just going to prepare for 8 hours, 12 hours, I think we're going to continue to see more volatility in the system, more chaos, and that's how we know they are going to create their new order is out of chaos. So I think it's always best to plan for worst case. Like Scott was saying, okay, know where your local springs are, how to get there, how to purify your water. That's obviously number one. Number one is shelter. Number two is water, and definitely the hardest one to figure out and to store for water. But make those plans now and have a primary, an alternate, a contingency, and an emergency. Because like we say, if a tree falls in the woods, does it still make a sound? If there's an emergency, but you're prepared, is it actually an emergency? So if you're down to your fourth contingency, you're down to your fourth option, maybe at that point it does become an emergency. But if you're prepared and you have already 3 others already prepared, it's not an emergency yet.
What's funny is okay, so sewers. It's the down and dirty time. So with an emergency, long-term emergency, will your sewer lines continue to work? Right? You don't need clean water to flush the toilet, but will everything still go down? There are cities like where I live, we're on a hill, and so everything is gravity fed until you get to the valley below. And in the valley, guess what? It's electric pump to clear the sewer. Guys, if you're at the low spot in your sewer network, you're gonna have to wade through a lot of poop.
Yeah,
you've got to plan and understand what you're dealing with, and know, okay, I can plug all my sewer lines so nothing comes into the house, and make sure I don't put anything else down. Like if I'm the low guy on that system, but you've got to look at it and see what it's set up to do, because if it's a long term, if it's short term, it's easy to fix, right? It's just going to be a short interruption. But if it goes long terms, those systems will be done. They're gone. They don't work anymore. So you've got to switch to an alternative.
You can even call your city and ask them. You can call your city and ask them what backups they have in case things like that happen, so that you kind of have an idea what you need to do to prepare. Not that we should rely on others, but sometimes it's good to know what others have in place already so that you can be prepared on your own.
So Mike, you're prepared to seal your sewer drains. I know how I would do it. What are your plans? And if you're a plumber, you already know how you do that. You can get inflating bladders to stick down in your toilet, in your floor drains, because you're going to have a floor drain near your water heater if it's in the basement, like in all the houses I've lived in. So there's a lot of potential ways it can back up into your house, especially if you're on the low end, like Scott's saying. Everything flows downhill, and people uphill are still going to be flushing when you can't. So that could be very bad.
So I've got these little caps that I can drop into every toilet hole and close those off at every sewer hole in my house. But I do like the idea of the air bladders that you can actually push down in there. I saw a YouTube channel. There was a guy that did that with bicycle tires.
Mm-hmm.
He took mountain bike tires, cut them, tied off each end, and cut the little nozzle, and then he shimmied it in there and then pumped it up. And I think it was like 2.5 feet long that he made sure it went down.
Nice.
Because your toilet's going to have about 1.5 feet of drain space. So you got to go longer than that to make sure it's actually in the piping.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of this poopy conversation.
Thank you. So another thing that we haven't really talked, I guess, a lot about, but we talked about communications. We talked about having backup battery. We talk a lot about having like a battery bank, solar generator, what kind of commonly known as having gas generators, propane generators, but just have your EDC ready. If you're always prepared, you don't have to get prepared, right? So if you got a flashlight on you, and most of the time, I can get around without a flashlight. But now imagine the entire city is out and there's no moon, there's cloud cover. It is dark. Can get really dark. And I think that's something that we maybe don't think about because we have all the street lights and there's a lot of ambient light if you're in suburbia or in an urban area. But when you're out in the country or there are no lights anywhere, it can be extremely dark. Yeah. So I am a bit of a flashlight ophile. I love flashlights. I just ordered another one. But and it's also for sharing as well, but having backups on backups and backups, and also maybe having a set of string lights that you can plug into your battery bank as well for the home, and just have a little bit more convenience at home and make it a little bit more normal, especially for the kids. My kids are old enough now that they don't necessarily worry about that kind of stuff, but make it a time for a quality family time at home, right? A game night.
Yep.
Yeah, I had
for
me, the internet went out the other day and I was like frustrated because I was like, dang it, I'm not going to be able to work. And so those temporary outages are it's like, man, I want to be able to work today. But when it's going to be long term, you kind of just settle in. You're like, okay, kids, there's for the next couple of days, we're going to be, having to figure out things to entertain ourselves and do some fun board game, bring out the board games, make sure that all the pieces, you might make sure that all the pieces to your puzzles are actually there so that you can actually do puzzles and other things. So having games to work on is a good idea too with the power, especially if the power is going to be out in an extended way.
Or you can intentionally pull a puzzle piece and tell the kids to go find it. It's in your pocket. That'll keep them distracted for a few hours. So you can get some
good idea.
I think you've done that before, huh, Scott?
Maybe.
This is a great idea, Mike, is have some RV antifreeze on hand. If like what happened in Texas several years ago, power went out when in middle of winter, had no way to heat the houses, and pipes froze and destroyed a lot. Yeah, so being able to shut your water off, winterize your toilets, winterize your P traps, so they don't freeze, and then stay there or get out. And relocate for a while.
What do? You just pour the antifreeze down the toilet, or?
Yeah, it's like winterizing an RV. Anywhere the water can fit, you got to replace it with water.
So you pour it into
do it down your sink too.
Yep.
Well, you'd want to just drain your tank. You can whatever you can drain, and you could use a shop vac to suck out the water in your toilet in the P traps, but you'll want to replace that with antifreeze.
Oh wow!
And the same with your RV. You fill the pipes with antifreeze because you can't really evacuate all the water
for those of us who don't have an RV, I'm asking these questions for those people listening that don't have an RV, of course.
And once you winterize an RV, you'd know how to do it.
When you're winterizing a house, like I used to deal a lot with HUD homes. And so in HUD home sales in the winter, they're not powered. So you're walking through that home. If it's an evening, you're walking through the home with flashlights and lanterns anyways. And it's cold and they've got signs over the toilets with little green goo in there or yellow, depending, or even orange, saying winterize, do not flush. The reason they winterize it rather than just empty it is because otherwise you're going to fill the entire house with noxious gas. Right?
Yeah, that too.
Sewer gas. You don't want that. And that's why you winterize the toilets and the sinks so that you don't have that gas free flowing back into the house, because that'll make you sick. That'll make you.
That's exactly. And that's why we have P traps in the sink, because the water in the P trap stops the gas from the sewer coming back up. So you have to have liquid in there. So if you take the water out, the gases are going to flow back into your house, the stink. And that's where the antifreeze comes in. Yeah.
Wow. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and Mike, good point. Has to be RV antifreeze, not car antifreeze. It's specifically designed for winterization of pipes, not for going in your radiator.
Well, now I know what I need to go stock up on.
Have a couple of gallons of RV antifreeze.
A couple gallons of antifreeze. I mean, how many gallons is good for a house? 10 gallons? 5 gallons?
How many toilets do you have? So you need about a gallon. A gallon container. Well, actually, they're usually in a gallon and a half to 2 gallon containers. So one of those per toilet is typically what they would tell us when I was doing HUD homes.
Yeah. So you'll want to pour it down your sinks as well.
Mm-hmm.
All this, wherever there's a P trap, a sink, or your washer dryer, your washer as well is going to have a P trap there. You got to get some antifreeze in all those. But I mean, I think that's maybe we're going overkill on talking about this, but as that's kind of it's low chance. It could happen. It's good information. Yeah.
Well, and also I like this comment from Thedra. Keep it away from your pets. It's toxic and it's a sweet smell, so pets will be attracted to it. So absolutely good to have.
Vehicle antifreeze in particular. Yeah.
So I mean, cool. In a nutshell, we've talked about if you're home and the power goes out, some things you can do. We've talked about if you're out and about traveling and the power goes out, some ways to be prepared and ready for that with your car kits. Make sure your cars are filled with that. How about if you're in an office building at work and the power goes out and there's no elevator? You got to be able to hoof it down those steps. If you're on I used to work in LA, and it was in the world. I can't remember. It was the largest building that side of the Mississippi at the time. And we were like on the 30 some odd floor. And so if power went out and you're in a building like that, some of those exits are electrical, hopefully they'll reset and they'll be open. But if you're in a building and you got to get out, you're looking at the stairwell. Like you got to you're going to be hiking down some stairs for a while.
Or if you're disabled, you're going to be sliding downstairs.
And
if you have your work shoes on, right? You're wearing high heels, ladies. You'd be able to walk home in your high heels.
Yeah.
Have some other shoes in your vehicle.
Yep.
And if power's out and you're in a garage, if a power out's out in a garage, that lever going up and down is not going to be working, and you may not be able to get your car out. So Or maybe
So
you just ran through it. I don't
supposedly-
know.
No, supposedly in a power outage scenario, those have to open up. Same with the interior locking doors in an emergency. They're electrified locks, and if there's an emergency, they unlock because they can't keep somebody locked inside of a building.
Nice.
So they all have to have an emergency breaker or a way for it to go up. So when I was in Diamond Bar, California, we actually had a parking garage. And that was a question I asked them, like, what happens if the power goes out? And they're like, oh, this opens it. It can't stay closed without power.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's how those work, but not all of them are that way. Some of them are manual, and there's a guy that sits there and he pushes a button or pulls a pulley and lets them open, right? Those, we've got to look at those. But there are fail safes for those things. But what if the fail safe doesn't work? Which is basically your point, right? Good to have tools on hand.
Yeah. Well, I think just in general, just being preppers, being a prepared person, you're most likely already prepared for this event, right?
Right.
For a power outage, you've got your shelter, you've got, at least 3 months worth of food and water, and it's just going to be a bit of a vacation, hopefully. Not having to work on the internet, online and
Go do some yard work.
Exactly. Go do some yard work and just wait it out.
Pull some
Because
weeds.
I think there will be a point in when, the doomsday comes out of me that power will be down. We'll never get it back. Could be an EMP or whatever. But more likely, things are going to happen more and more like what happened in Spain. That power will be down for half a day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. And that can get very dangerous. So if you're prepared for 3 months, call it a vacation. And stay home, stay out of trouble, because out there's a lot of people who are not going to be prepared, who haven't even thought of this possibility, and they'll be panicked. And at best is just to stay out, stay home, and not have to go out for milk or cheese or whatever.
Yeah. I think another thing to think about is real fast is that if you have prescriptions and you need them filled and the power's out, you may not be able to get to the pharmacy. So I'm going to throw in a plug real quick for Jace Medical right here to get your medical supplies and have extra on hand. Another really good idea is to get 90-day supplies and hope that the power outage isn't on the 89th day. But if you have a 90-day supply of your medicines, that is another good thing to do. So definitely hit Jace, JASE, jacemedical.com. and use code Prepper Talk to get some money off of your kits there and your stash of medicines.
So I was actually visiting with my allergist today because I have a lot of fun deals I've got to deal with. And we were talking about EpiPens, and they typically, just so everyone knows out there, they're typically good up to 5 years after the expiration date. The way to know if they're still good or not, they all have a window. And if it's turned milky gray, they're no longer good. But don't just toss them out if they've hit the expiration date. The expiration date is kind of the same as a grocery store Best By date. They're like, hurry and replace it so we can make more money. It's not bad yet. And so good to know. One of his neighbor kids was over at their house swimming and ate a peanut butter cookie. They're allergic to peanut butters. And guess what? Peanut butters. I don't know why I said it that way. They had their reaction, and he went and grabbed one. It was expired. It was 5 years old. Almost 5 years old, past the due date. Looked at it, it said it was still good. Used it, avoided a trip to the ER.
Nice.
And the kid was fine, right? So knowing and having just the right stuff on hand can save a life. And my final thought will go along right with what Mike said. Right there, my wife will probably be traveling when power goes out. I'm going to miss her. Guys, if you're traveling and the power goes out, it's a whole new ball game. So, as we always say, pack heavy, have tools on you, keep prepared, and you won't be scared.
Amen to that. Awesome. Shane, any last thoughts?
No, I think I've said my fill.
You've said your piece. Well, hopefully you guys have a little bit more clarity on what happens when the lights go out. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And hopefully it's not very long, but us preppers, we believe that when the SHTF and the Teotihuacan, we're going to be long term without power. So have your solar panels, have your backups, have your contingency plans. Make sure you're ready to rock and roll, and make sure that you hit up our recommendations. We have some great recommendations for some solar stuff. I think we have I think on our website we have we have an Oops Energy, we have Lion Energy, we have emergency lighting with Devos Outdoor. We have some great, even at Survival Frog, they got some great portable panels and stuff. So if you're going to get prepared, you might as well have a discount, and you might as well support the show. So use code Prepper Talk in any of those places. Click those links, get what you need. And you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, Radio for the Ready-Minded. And thank you so much for being with us on the live. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Take care. Have a great week.
See you next week.
See you guys.